The Witch and the Definitely Dead Detective by Sadie Brent, Chapter 14. Apple Ideas and Unexpected Arrivals. The warm, buttery scent of pancakes and sizzling bacon greeted Evie as she stepped into Red's diner the next morning. The bell above the door jingled softly, and the hum of conversation wrapped around her like a cozy blanket. Red himself, a burly man with a salt and pepper beard and an apron that looked like it had survived decades of kitchen battles, called out from behind the counter. "Morning, Miss Hutchison. Settling in yet?" "Good morning, Red. I think so," Evie replied with a smile as she approached the counter. "Good. You tell Marcellus if he's not treating you right, I'll stop serving him coffee," Red joked, winking as he slid a steaming mug in her direction. "Good luck with that," came Marcellus's voice from a nearby booth. He leaned back, grinning at her. "I practically keep this place in business." Evie laughed, feeling an odd sense of belonging settle over her. She ordered a breakfast sandwich and coffee to go, then slid into the seat across from Marcellus while she waited. "What brings you here so early?" she asked. "Same thing as everyone else. Breakfast I don't have to make," he quipped, setting down his fork. As they chatted about the diner's menu, Evie hesitated, swirling her coffee cup nervously. Finally, she leaned in, keeping her voice low. "Marcellus, can I ask you something a little odd?" His brow quirked, but his expression remained light. "Of course. Did you ever notice anything strange at Lizzie's shop?" Marcellus chuckled. "Well, aside from Lizzie herself, you know how she was, always full of surprises." "Not like that," Evie pressed, leaning forward. "I mean, unusual, like, really strange?" His grin faltered for a moment, replaced by something thoughtful. He glanced around the bustling diner, then stood abruptly. "Come on," he said, gesturing for her to follow. Evie grabbed her coffee and joined him outside, where the air was crisp and cool, carrying the faint scent of dew and wildflowers. "Lizzie used to joke about her shop helper," Marcellus said quietly. "She called him James, said he was always watching over things." He shrugged. "I never saw anything, but I'll admit, the place had a certain feel to it, like it was alive somehow. It wouldn't surprise me if she wasn't just joking." Evie stared at him, her thoughts racing. Did she ever say anything else about him? "Not much, just that he'd been around for a long time. Honestly, I thought it was one of her quirks, but—" He looked at her with a raised eyebrow. "Are you saying there's more to it?" "Maybe," Evie said cautiously, unwilling to say too much. Marcellus smirked. "Well, if anyone can figure it out, I'm betting it'll be you. Just don't let Red catch you talking to the walls, or he'll put you in charge of the gossip column." He opened the door to the diner for her. Evie laughed, but her mind was already spinning as they said their goodbyes, and she took her breakfast and made her way to the shop. When she unlocked the door, a tiny breeze swept past her, carrying the faint aroma of herbs and aged wood. She stepped inside, her eyes scanning the familiar chaos of jars, books, and trinkets. A slip of paper on the counter caught her attention. "Fishing for apples," it read, scrawled in an old-fashioned hand. "Like the kid's toy. Magnetic apples with numbers on the bottom for prizes. For the reopening." Evie grinned, holding the note up. "James, was this you?" The air felt slightly warmer, though nothing moved. "Thanks for the idea," she added aloud, smiling. Spinks hopped up onto the counter, pawing at the paper like it was a toy. Evie scratched behind his ears as she glanced around. "Okay, James, since you're apparently great at brainstorming, any other ideas? Decorations? Sales gimmicks? Maybe some magical sparklers that won't set the fire alarm off?" Nothing. But the quiet shop felt oddly companionable as she moved about, tidying displays and organizing shelves. She was halfway through rearranging a shelf of Lizzie's homemade lotions and creams, jars of lavender, eucalyptus, and rose scents wafting into the air when she finally heard James's voice. "Lizzie would never put sparklers in here," he said. "She was much more into bubbles. She once had a bubble machine going for an entire week." Evie turned, startled but amused. "A bubble machine? That sounds excessive." James appeared by the register, his arms crossed and a mischievous glint in his eye. "It was a disaster. One kid slipped and knocked over an entire display of honey candles. Lizzie had to bribe his parents with free beeswax polish for a year." Evie laughed, leaning on the counter. "She sounds like she was amazing." "She was," James said, his voice softening. "And so are you, by the way." I think she'd be proud of you for taking this on." Evie felt a lump rise in her throat but swallowed it down. "Thanks, James." They lapsed into companionable silence, with James occasionally chiming in with sarcastic comments about her organizational skills. "So, about the crypto arcanum," Evie began cautiously. James immediately shook his head. "Not yet, Evie. We'll talk about it, sure, but trust me, you're not ready." "I'm an adult, you know," she teased, crossing her arms. "Which is exactly why I know you'll wait," James countered with a wink. Before she could argue further, the shop door swung open, and Annie burst in, her face alight with excitement. "Evie," Annie cried, her arms wide for a hug. James vanished instantly. Evie laughed, rushing to embrace her friend. "You're early." "Couldn't wait," Annie said, stepping back to look around. "This place is amazing, and wow, it smells like heaven in here." Evie grinned, already feeling lighter. "Come on, let me show you everything." As they dove into catching up and planning the reopening, Evie's thoughts lingered on James and the book upstairs. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow she'd get more answers.